Welcome to Counttuts. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at the petty cash journal, and it's going to be a quick lesson on this particular journal. We've done many other journals before: the cash receipts journal, the cash payments journal, the sales journal, the purchases journal. So you'll find the links to those lessons in the description below. But here specifically, we're going to focus on the petty cash journal. It's a simple journal to actually deal with, as you shall see. But what is the petty cash journal? Well, a petty cash journal is a special accounting record used to track small day-to-day cash payments made from the petty cash fund. These are usually minor expenses that are not practical to pay through the main cash or bank account. And so that is what many entities would have. They would have petty cash, and they would use this petty cash to pay for small items. Let's say for delivery of food, when you're buying food for staff on a Friday, for instance, then you would use cash as opposed to using the business card, because maybe the ones who are dealing with buying the small items like stationery, for instance, do not have the authority to use a business card. And so that is one of the reasons that you would use a petty cash journal. Another reason that you would use a petty cash journal is if you're going to be paying for items where they won't necessarily have the facilities for you to pay with your card or to pay via EFT. And so you would know there are many items that you would pay for using petty cash, as you shall see with the examples that we'll go through. So this is mainly for small day-to-day cash payments. Now, the petty cash journal, it's not just for someone who is studying just to know the journal in passing, but it's actually an essential journal for you to have even in business. I can tell you, even from practice, as we manage books for entities, you realize that many do not manage their petty cash quite well. In fact, they don't keep records at all of their petty cash, and so there's no way for them to know whether money is being used for the wrong purposes, because there's really no petty cash journal that they keep. They would just know that, oh, the money is finished for petty cash, let's replenish it, and they would do just that. So this is a very important journal to keep. However you do it, whether you do it manually or you use cloud accounting and the many systems that are available for you to do that, you can do that. Why does it exist? As I've already mentioned, the purpose of petty cash journal is to record low value transactions such as refreshments for staff, transport costs, stationery, and cleaning materials. And so with cloud accounting today, your bank account can be connected to your accounting package, where whenever you use the bank card, it automatically allocates it to whatever the expense is, if you set it that way, or whatever the revenue is. But in this case, since you're dealing with actual hard cash, there's no way for a system to track it unless you're manually recording and you're keeping the receipts for them. And so that's the purpose, to record low value transactions such as refreshments for staff, transport costs, stationery, and cleaning materials. So you'll see that these are small items that do not necessarily need you to pay via EFT or to use the business card. Okay, that's one of the purposes, and it's also to keep proper records and control over petty cash expenses. And this is very important, as I've just mentioned, to keep proper records and control. How else would you know how petty cash is being used and what it's used for and what amount went where if you don't have a journal to do just that? And so it's a very important journal for you to have, or for an entity to have. And the other purpose is to help with reimbursements and auditing. And that's another very important one, because usually you would have in organizations where someone would use their own cash and you need to replace it. And so for instance, if someone has gone somewhere to buy something for the entity and they realize that, hey, the money is not enough, or they don't have card facilities, or whatever the case is, and you're not able to get the cash in time, and you have to use your own money and get a refund. And so keeping a petty cash journal will help with reimbursement and auditing. And by auditing there, we mean if you want to see the movement of money and where money went to, you'll want to look at the petty cash journal if you want to audit the actual cash that has been removed from the business account and used for petty cash, and where that money has been going throughout a specific period. And so the petty cash journal is still very much in use and very much essential. Okay, so those are the purposes of the petty cash journal. Now, it's important for us to note that the journal does not include EFTs or check payments, large purchases such as equipment, or petty cash float top-ups. These go into the cash payments journal. So if you're making payments using the bank account or online banking or using the app or EFT, that is, then you would not record this in the petty cash journal, because there's nothing to do with petty cash. Petty cash is money that we have, and we're using it specifically for small items, as we've already mentioned. So any large purchases that you would use online banking transfers or EFTs would not go into the petty cash journal. And another important one, as you see here, what we've mentioned, petty cash float top ups, if they tell you that you want to replace or top up the petty cash because it's running out, or you want to replenish it as the word would be used, then that replacement, if let's say you are replacing the petty cash with 2,000 rand, you don't record that amount in the petty cash journal. And that's another very big mistake that's usually made. Petty cash journal only records amounts that have been paid out using petty cash, not what you've brought into the petty cash. Okay, so money that has been paid from the business account into the petty cash, or removed or withdrawn for the purposes of petty cash, would be recorded in the cash payments journal. And we've done a lesson on the cash payments journal, so you'll find it in the link in the description below if you want to understand more on what goes in the cash payments journal. Okay, so it's important for us to note that the petty cash journal ensures that even small expenses are tracked and accounted for, so every rand spent is properly managed. So you can imagine this when one of the employees of the entity comes and say, hey, petty cash is finished, we need to replenish it, and you withdraw the money for the petty cash. But the question would be, okay, the money is finished, please send me the petty cash journal so that we can see and track the expenses that were incurred using petty cash. And that's how you have proper management of the petty cash, and that's how it works. So you're tracking and accounting for every cent that has been used from the petty cash. Now, how does the petty cash journal look like? How do we record using the petty cash journal? Well, here's a template of the petty cash journal. Now, they may look slightly different from one institution to another, and I'll explain why just now, but you usually have document number and the day that the money was used, and this will correspond with the receipt. And the details here, you would put the name of the entity or the person that you paid. Okay, so if it was Pick n Pay that you bought refreshments from, then you'd put Pick n Pay there. And the petty cash, that's where you'd put the amount that you use. So if you use 300 rand, then you'd put it there. And then you've got here another column. You can see it's written staff refreshments. Now, some petty cash journals may not have staff refreshments. In fact, we would usually create a column for common items or repeated items that are repeated quite often. And so, for instance, if you're buying staff refreshments every week, and this is where the majority of the money from petty cash goes to, then you definitely have the column for that, as we do here. Or if you're using most of the money for cleaning supplies, then you'd have either another column for cleaning supplies, or replace this one if staff refreshments is not a common repeated item. Okay, and everything else that you don't have a column for, if you've looked at our other journals, then you'd know this. You have what is called sundry account, and sundry account is where you record all accounts that you do not have a specific column for. So, for instance, we've got a column for staff refreshments here. So any money that has been paid out for staff refreshments will not go into the sundry account because we have a column for it here. But anything else, let's say you bought cleaning supplies, then you definitely put the amount here, which is the same amount that would have been in petty cash here, and you put the details here as cleaning supplies, if that's where you allocate the cleaning supplies expenses to. Okay, I hope that has made sense, but you'll understand much more as we go through this example. So let's have a look at an example in how to complete the petty cash journal and look at some transactions in doing just that. Here is an example. We have a few transactions here for the month of May, and you can see at the bottom here we have the required prepare the petty cash journal of Glow Haven soaps for the month of May 2025. And so we're going to do just that. We have transaction from the 1st of May to the 30th of May. So we're going to go through each one. Firstly, determine whether they go into the petty cash journal. As we've mentioned, this is money that is used, actual cash that is used from the petty cash to pay for small items. So if you're using our bank account, or we are receiving money from somewhere, or even if we are replenishing the petty cash, those do not go into the petty cash journal. And you'll see as we cross them out in completing the petty cash journal. So let's bring up our journal once more. This is how it's going to look. We've got here petty cash journal of Glow Haven soaps for the month of May 2025, and that's how you would title it. Okay, petty cash journal of, and then you put the company name and the month for which you are preparing the petty cash, or the period for which you are preparing the petty cash. And we've got document number, day, details, petty cash, staff refreshments, because we believe it's a repeated item, and for you it might be different if it's not staff refreshments or if it's another expense, but you get the principle. And then sundry account is, of course, as I mentioned, for all other accounts for which we don't have the columns. So let's go back here and look. The 1st of May, we're first told here that Rotich runs a small business called Glow Haven Soaps. The business uses a petty cash float system to cover minor business expenses. The following transactions took place in May 2025. The 1st of May, the business withdrew 1,000 rand to be used as petty cash. Now, would you record that in the petty cash journal? I hope you already know, as I've mentioned a few times, that we do not record money that has been withdrawn from the account to put into petty cash. In fact, this one here would go into the cash payments journal. So let's cross that one out, as it would not go into the petty cash journal. And then the 3rd of May, Rotich paid 450 Rand cash for packaging materials used for wrapping soap bars from Dagesh Forte. Document number PCV001 was used for this transaction. And so here we definitely have amount that is used from the petty cash. Okay, so we are told here Rotich paid 450 Rand cash for packaging materials used for wrapping soap bars from Dagesh Forte. And you can see here we are given the document number PCV001. The word PCV there is usually used for petty cash, and it would stand for petty cash voucher 001. And so remember, you might have a petty cash voucher that you're using for every expense that you will have where petty cash is used. And so this is going to be our document number PCV001. Usually you might be given the first one, and then the rest you're not given the document number. And so what you'll have to do there is just follow the sequence. So for the next one, I would put PCV002 if I'm not given. Okay, so let's put our details here. We've got the document number PCV001, and it's the 3rd of May. So let's do just that. PCV001 and the 3rd of May. And then the detail here is, where did the money go to? Who did we pay this money to? Well, let's go back to our information here. We're told Rotich paid 450 Rand cash for packaging material used for wrapping soap bars from Dagesh Forte. So you can see here we've got the name. We paid Dagesh Forte for packaging materials. So we're going to put this as the details, Dagesh Forte. So let's go ahead and do that. Here we go, Dagesh Forte as the details, and you can see here you're putting the name of the person whom you paid using your petty cash. And then what amount are we going to put under petty cash? Well, I hope you saw that. If you go back here, you can see Rotich paid 450 Rand. So that's what we're going to put under petty cash. And what was he buying? He was buying packaging materials. So let's go and put 450 Rand here. And so packaging materials is definitely not staff refreshments. So we're not going to put it under staff refreshments. And because we don't have a column specifically for packaging materials, it's going to go under sundry account. And so knowing that, we're going to put the amount here as 450 Rand under sundry account. Remember, it's going to be the same amount that's appearing under petty cash. So you put 450 Rand there. And what is the detail going to be? Well, let's go back, as I've just already mentioned it. He paid 450 Rand cash for packaging materials used for wrapping soap bars from Dagesh Forte. And so this is packaging materials, so we're going to put it as such. You can see here packaging materials, and this is how you go about putting amounts into your petty cash journal. You analyze what it is and the information that you are given. Once you've determined it goes into the petty cash journal, then you need to put the details in each of their columns as we have done here. So let's go ahead and highlight that one because we've just completed it. On the 4th of May, the business paid 10,000 Rand via EFT to Beauty Natural suppliers for a bulk order of essential oils. And I would like you to pause the video here, attempt to do the rest of the questions, identify which one goes into the petty cash, and try and put it in the petty cash account. And once you're done, you can press play and mark yourself and see how well you have done. And I can tell you that you'll be in a much better position than someone who's just following along, because you will see where your understanding is and where you may be going wrong. Okay, so the one on the 4th of May, is this one going to be recorded in the petty cash journal? Well, I hope from what I've mentioned earlier, you know that it doesn't go into the petty cash journal. Why is that? Well, because the business paid 10,000 Rand via EFT. Very important. It wasn't paid using petty cash. And you can see it's a substantial amount. It's not a small amount. This is 10,000 Rand. And so, of course, you'd unlikely have this amount lying in petty cash. Petty cash usually has small amounts lying in it. But that's not where our clue is. Our clue that it's not going into the petty cash is the fact that we're told it was paid via EFT. Now, if you go back to our initial slide where we are explaining the theory behind the petty cash journal, you will know that we say that EFT payments does not go into the petty cash. So let's highlight this one in red, as it does not go into the petty cash. And I hope you got that correctly if you attempted the question as I suggested. On the 7th of May, Rotich bought refreshments for a staff meeting costing 195 Rand from Pick n Pay using cash. And so this one definitely goes into the petty cash journal. But what you'll note here is that we're not given the document number. And remember, as I mentioned earlier, for the 3rd of May, we're given the document number for what goes into the petty cash, PCV001. For this one, we're not, so we're just going to follow that sequence, PCV002. And remember, PCV is the petty cash voucher that you would have to take out when you're removing cash. So the date is the 7th of May, and we're going to put PCV002, okay, because the second journal entry. So it's PCV002, and the date there, as you can see, is the 7th of May. So we'll put the 7th of May. And what is the detail? who did we buy from? Who did we pay this money to? Well, I hope you saw there on the note, it told us that we paid Pick n Pay. You can see here from Pick n Pay using cash. So we're going to put under details Pick n Pay. Okay. And then what is the petty cash amount? Well, let's go back here. You can see it's 195 Rand. So we're going to put that under petty cash as 195 Rand. And these were for refreshment for staff meeting. So we're going to put 195 Rand under petty cash. Now, do we have a column for refreshments? Of course we do. Staff refreshments. And so we're going to put the 195 Rand under staff refreshments. Do you see what you do when you have a column for a particular account or particular expense? That's where you'd put the amount, and there would be nothing under sundry account because you have a column for staff refreshments. If you didn't, like I've mentioned a few times, you'd put it under sundry account. But since we do, you just put the amount under the staff refreshment column. So let's go back, highlight that one as we've just completed it. On the 13th of May, paid 210 Rand from petty cash. So it's easy for us. We already told it was from petty cash to cover transport costs for delivering soap samples to a local beauty store. And so here we have transport costs and we are paying 210 Rand. And remember, we are not given the document number here, so we're going to call it PCV003 and the date is the 13th of May. So I hope you already know there. We've put PCV003, 13th of May, quite easy to do. And what is our detail? Who did we pay this money to? Well, we're told that we paid to cover transport costs for delivering soap samples to a local beauty store. So we're not given the name of the person or the entity that we paid the money to. So we're going to just call it transport cost, okay, or travel expenses, whatever you want to put there. And you can see that's what you put under details. And we brought that in to just show you that if you're not given the name of the entity, then you can just put the name of the account, transport costs there. And then under petty cash, you're going to put the amount. How much was it? 210 Rand, as you can see there. And since we don't have a column for transport costs or travel expenses, we are going to put it under sundry account, which you already know. So we're going to put the amount as 210 Rand, and the account there or the details is going to be travel expenses or transport costs. And so you can see under details I put transport costs, and here I put travel expenses. You can still put transport costs here under sundry account, and you can still put travel expenses here under details. So whichever term you choose to use, that's still fine as long as you're speaking to exactly what is happening, okay, in the account. So here the details, we just explained that it was for transport costs, but here we allocated it specifically to the travel expenses account. I hope you can see how you handle a situation where you're not given the name of the person that you paid or the name of the entity that you paid. So let's go back, highlight that one. On the 16th of May, paid 5,000 Rand deposit via bank transfer for a new soap cutting machine. I hope you know that does not go into the petty cash journal. That was via bank transfer. We didn't pay cash to anyone. We didn't take out money from petty cash, that is. So we're going to highlight that in red as it does not go into the petty cash journal. On the 21st of May, purchased printer, ink and paper from CNA for 400 Rand. The payment was made in cash. And so if we made the payment in cash, we're using our petty cash here. So we're going to include it in our journal. So again, we're not given the document number here, so we're going to call it PCV004 because the last one we did was PCV003 and the date is the 21st of May. So let's do just that, PCV004, and we put 21st of May. What is the details here? Who did we pay the money to? Well, I hope you saw that it was CNA. If we go back here, you can see from CNA for 400 Rand. So we put CNA there under details, and under petty cash we put 400 Rand. What did we buy here? Let's go back and see. We bought printer, ink and paper. And so let's go back there and see that we don't have a column for what we call printing and stationery. Remember, when you buy printing items, like here we have printer, ink and paper, we usually allocate it to printing and stationery. And you can see here we don't have a column for printing and stationery, so definitely sundry account. We put the 400 Rand under amounts for sundry account, and under details we put the account. What's the name of the account? Printing and stationery. And that's how you go about doing that one. You can see the name of the account is what is always under details in sundry account, since we don't have a column for it. So let's go back, highlight that one as we've just completed it. On the 25th of May, 3,000 Rand was withdrawn from the business bank account to top up the petty cash float. Now, I hope you already know this. We've mentioned it a few times. If we are withdrawing money from the business account to replenish or to top up the petty cash float, you don't put it in the petty cash journal. I can tell you this is one of the biggest mistakes that is made in the petty cash journal, okay? Where you put the amount that is used to replenish the petty cash in the petty cash journal, which is incorrect. The petty cash journal only record money that has been paid out from the petty cash. So the money that is used to replenish the petty cash, that one would go into the cash payments journal, as we mentioned in the beginning. So this is not a petty cash journal item, so we're going to highlight it in red. Lastly, 30th of May, paid 160 Rand in cash for staff lunch during a soap workshop. And you can see here we paid in cash, so that definitely goes into the petty cash journal. So it's the 30th of May and we don't have the document number, so we're going to call it PCV005. And so let's do that. There we go, PCV005 document number, and the day is 30th of May. And the details there, who did we pay this money to? Well, let's go back. You can see that it was paid for staff lunch during soap workshop. So we don't have the name of the person that we paid for the lunches that we bought, so we're going to put it as staff lunch under details there. As we've already explained earlier, what you do when you don't have the name of the person that you are paying. And what is the petty cash? What is the amount there? Well, let's go back. You can see it's 160 rand that we paid in cash, so we're going to put it under petty cash, 160 rand. And staff lunch, what do we allocate that as? Staff refreshments. Remember, when you're buying your staff food, whether that's lunch or whether that is happy hour on Friday afternoon, whatever the case is, that goes under staff refreshments. So we're going to put the 160 rand under staff refreshments, and we don't have anything, of course, for sundry account. So let's go back, highlight that one as we've just completed it, and you can see we've looked at every transaction on this particular month. We've highlighted what does not go into the petty cash journal and what goes into the petty cash journal, and we've made sure that we've gone through every single transaction. Okay, so now that we are done, let's go back here to our journal. What do you usually do? Well, we're going to put the totals at the bottom to see how much we spent from petty cash in the month of May. So let's do that total, and you can see we've got 1,415 rand that we spent in the month of May 2025 for petty cash specifically, and part of that was spent for staff refreshments, and the rest went under sundry account for particular line items as detailed here. Okay, this is how you go about doing your petty cash journal. Now, I hope if you came into this lesson having not a clue as to how you do the petty cash journal, now you have a very good idea on how to do it, and you're confident that you can do it yourself. If that's you, please consider subscribing to our channel, like this video, and share it to those you think it might help. Till next time, cheers.